The wine glass tipped first. That's what I remember. Not the music, not the smell of her perfume as she leaned in toward him, not even the dozen faces trying not to watch. Just the stupid, slow-motion fall of that overpriced glass of Shiraz, wobbling at the edge of the table like it didn't know if it was allowed to ruin the moment. But it did. And when it shattered, so did something in me. There was this long wooden table in the middle of the rooftop. Everyone had gathered around for what was supposed to be a small toast. She stood on one side. I stood on the other. And he, her real man, sat directly between us like he'd earned the throne just by showing up late and flexing his wristwatch. She clinked her glass with his, smiled with her eyes more than her lips, and then, in front of every mutual friend we'd ever trusted with our worst secrets, she leaned down and kissed him. No hesitation. No shame. Just soft, smug destruction. Then came the laugh. Not hers or his. Deep, ugly, victorious. I still hear it when the house goes quiet. And then her voice. That's what a real man feels like. Boom. Just like that. She didn't even glance at me. Not once. Not until someone whispered her name like they were calling a child out of a tantrum. Then she looked up, caught my eyes across the table, and there it was, not guilt, not surprise. Just that cold, almost clinical curiosity, like she was waiting to see what I'd do. Like I was a science experiment. Or a slow-burning fuse. I didn't do what they thought. I didn't flip the table. I didn't throw the drink. I didn't shout or scream or beg her to remember the time we danced in a thunderstorm, or that night in the tent when she said I was her forever. I didn't even ask who he was. Instead, I smiled. It wasn't a brave smile. It wasn't even angry. It was the kind of smile that happens when your body is trying to keep your teeth from chattering. The kind that barely holds your face together when your ribs feel like they've been scooped out with a spoon. I turned and walked away. Every step I took across that rooftop sounded louder than the music. I heard nothing but my own feet. No one followed. No one dared. And the best part? I was holding her car keys. I didn't go home right away. That would have made too much sense. Instead, I drove her car, her precious, spotless, don't leave a crumb on the seat car, to the one place she never thought I had the nerve to visit again. My old office parking lot. The one she told me to stop going near after my job laid me off 6 months ago, right around the time she started working late. I sat there in the driver's seat with my phone open, scrolling through the same 10 photos I'd never deleted, our anniversary trip, that messy ice cream night, the first plant we killed together, and something in me cracked wide open. Not with rage, not even grief. It was something colder. Like clarity. It hit me how perfectly blind I'd been. This wasn't spontaneous. It wasn't passion or a mistake or heat of the moment's stupidity. No, this was architecture. Planned betrayal. A stage performance with wine glasses, lipstick, and just the right lighting. The way she called him a real man, like it was a punchline she'd been practicing. Like I was the joke everyone had agreed not to laugh at too loudly. I opened the glove box. Her spare phone was still there, the one she kept in case of emergencies. I remembered the passcode. Her birthday. Reversed. She never imagined I'd check it. She thought I was too non-confrontational, too gentle, too emotionally avoidant. But I wasn't avoiding anything tonight. I went straight to her voice memos. And that's when I found it. The file was named Thursday Rehearsal. I almost didn't click it. I assumed it was a work thing, some meeting or memo or voice note about a project. But when I hit play, I heard her giggle. And then her voice, clear and syrupy. Okay, so I say it like this? Now this is what a real man feels like? Or is that too much? Then laughter. His voice, nah, babe, say it like you mean it. Make it sting. He needs to feel it. It wasn't a kiss. It wasn't a slip. It was a script. I sat in her car, engine running, in that empty parking lot for what felt like an hour. Maybe 2. I listened to it 5 times. Not because I didn't believe it, but because every replay built a colder, sharper version of myself I didn't recognize. One that didn't want closure. One that wanted precision. That's when I started talking. I hit record on my own voice memo and started saying everything I never thought I'd have the guts to say. I didn't scream. I didn't swear. I just spoke calmly, like I was leaving her directions on how to pick up the pieces of the life she smashed with her bare hands. I told her I'd be gone before sunrise. That she'd come home to nothing but echoes. That I'd removed my name from every shared account and canceled the joint credit card she'd been secretly using for hotel rooms and overpriced takeout. I told her the video footage of her and her real man kissing on the rooftop had already been backed up, not for blackmail, but for legal clarity. And then I said something I didn't plan. Something raw. I said, you once told me I was your calm in the storm. Turns out, you just needed someone quiet enough to betray without hearing the glass break. When I finished recording, I sent the file to her main phone and deleted it from mine. Then I parked her car in the alley behind her lover's apartment building, rolled the windows down just enough to let the night creep in, and left the keys tucked in the glove box next to a printed photo of us from the honeymoon, the one where she wrote forever. Always, no matter what on the back in silver marker. I walked away with nothing but my wallet and that cold, tired smile. The kind you wear when the worst already happened and the next chapter is yours to write from scratch, alone. Yes, but no longer pretending you're not drowning. And she still didn't know I had access to the shared cloud storage where her private recordings auto-synced. Every word, every whisper backed up. Logged. Filed. The woman who choreographed my humiliation in front of our friends had no idea. Her performance was being documented. And I wasn't done recording. I didn't sleep that night. Not because I was restless or angry or unsure. I didn't sleep because I finally had clarity and I didn't want to waste a second of it. I moved through our house like a ghost. Not the haunting kind. The kind that's already said its goodbyes and is just making sure all the doors are locked on the way out. I didn't pack bags. I didn't drag out suitcases and slam drawers like in the movies. No, I folded things. Quietly. I took what mattered and left the things that didn't, which, as it turned out, was nearly everything. I thought I'd feel sentimental looking at our photos or the blanket we bought together in Santa Fe, but all I saw were props. Stage decorations for a life I thought was real. She didn't come home that night. I didn't expect her to. She probably assumed I'd run off in a rage, drunk or defeated, and that I'd come back the next day with flowers or an apology or some long, pathetic speech about fighting for love. She always thought I was predictable. The dependable one. The easy one to betray because I never fought back. She once joked I'd probably forgive a mugger if they said sorry on their way out. That version of me was dead by sunrise. By the time light started bleeding through the windows, the house was nearly empty. I left her just enough to notice what was missing. I took my records, my grandfather's watch, the half-used notebook I kept hidden behind the bookshelf, the one where I wrote down every strange thing she'd said to me in the past year that didn't sit right at the time. Every lie she told that I'd gaslight myself into ignoring. I took that too. The final thing I left behind was the note. I didn't write it on paper. No, that would have been too easy to crumple, too tempting to rip up and pretend it never existed. I wrote it on the mirror, with her favorite red lipstick, the same one she wore at the party when she kissed him like I didn't matter. I didn't write anything cruel. I didn't name names. I just wrote. You called him a real man. I became something you don't have a word for. Check your email. That's it. No signature. No guilt. Just red words on glass. Then I walked out, locked the door, and sent the email. The attachment was short, under 2 minutes long. A screen recording. Her voice, rehearsing how to humiliate me. His voice, encouraging it. Followed by a photo of her kissing him, time-stamped and geotagged, clear as daylight. Not out of vengeance. I didn't post it anywhere. I didn't send it to friends or family. I just wanted her to see it and know that I knew everything and that I wasn't yelling because I didn't need to. The silence was going to be louder than anything she'd ever heard. I turned off my phone. For good. But not before forwarding all her private files, the voice memos, the cloud syncs, the audio backups, to an encrypted folder titled Performance Review. Just in case. I wasn't planning revenge. I wasn't even angry anymore. I just wanted truth. And space. And silence. I had no idea where I was going yet. I just knew where I'd never return. I walked 2 miles in the morning sun to a tiny diner on the edge of town. Ordered coffee. Sat in the corner by the window. Watched cars roll by like nothing had happened. And when the waitress asked if I wanted anything else, I smiled and said, just time. If you have any. She laughed, not knowing she was the first person to speak to me like I was human in months. Meanwhile, back home, Delia would be unlocking the front door to a vacuum. No shoes at the door, no toothbrush in the holder, no sound except the soft creak of absence. She'd see the mirror, then the email. Then, I imagine, the panic. And that's where I wanted her. Not crying. Not broken. Just confused. Off balance. Powerless. The way I'd felt when she kissed him right in front of me. Like I was disposable. Except now, I wasn't disappearing. I was erasing myself, with precision. I never expected to hear from her again. I honestly believed she'd rage, maybe cry, probably curse me out through her locked screen, and then disappear into her next act with the so-called real man like I never mattered. But that wasn't what happened. No, Delia didn't vanish. She searched. She hunted. And worst of all, she started doubting herself. That, I hadn't anticipated. I stayed in the guest room of an old college friend's lake house. Henry, bless his soul, didn't ask questions. Just handed me the key, a jug of tap water, and said I could stay as long as I needed. As long as you don't set the place on fire or alphabetize my cereal. I appreciated that more than I can say. The lake was silent in June. Too early for the tourists, too late for spring fever. There was a peace in that kind of isolation. But I couldn't shake the feeling that the performance was still going on without me. I pictured her standing in front of that mirror, reading my message in lipstick again and again, thinking she'd misread it. Maybe she did. She called 12 times. Texted 8. All from a number I didn't recognize, her work phone. The messages started casual. Hey, we need to talk. I'm really sorry about the party. Can we meet? Then they grew urgent. Wendell, what's going on? Where are you? Please just respond. Then came the crack in her voice messages. I don't understand. I made a mistake. But what you're doing, this silence, it's terrifying. I didn't answer. I didn't even listen to most of them. But I read them. And what fascinated me most was what she didn't say. She didn't apologize for the kiss. She didn't mention the audio recording. She didn't reference the man with the expensive watch and the hollow laugh. She just kept saying things like, I messed up, and we had something real. As if I had tripped, and she was kindly offering to help me back up before anyone noticed. Meanwhile, back at the house, she was digging through closets, checking digital accounts, calling customer service lines with a voice dipped in fake panic. How do I know? Because I left one final breadcrumb. A shared doc, still linked to her email, where I watched, in real time, as she opened and scrolled through a spreadsheet titled Household Inventory. It wasn't labeled Plan for Divorce or Proof of Infidelity. No, it was just a calm, precise list of items removed, dates of actions taken, and relevant legal notes. Line by line, she saw the quiet dismantling of the life she thought I was too timid to walk away from. She didn't cry then either. I could see her cursor just hover there, blinking. Then exit. 2 days later, I got the message that broke something even deeper than her betrayal. It was just 5 words. I found the audio file. I sat with that for hours. She didn't say, I'm sorry. She didn't say, please don't share this. She didn't even try to justify it. Just the fact. She found it. Her own voice. Her own plan. Her own recorded rehearsals for my public humiliation. Now undeniable. Now hers to face. And still, no apology. Instead, the next morning, a package arrived at the lake house. No return address. Just a small box wrapped too neatly to have been from anyone but her. I should have tossed it. I should have burned it. But I opened it. Inside was a photo. Us. From 4 years ago. Smiling with our foreheads pressed together on the Brooklyn Bridge. The only time we'd ever gone to New York. On the back, she'd written in the same handwriting I used to love. I don't know how to undo what I did. But I do know that losing you quietly hurts worse than being screamed at. I didn't respond. What was there to say? I'd screamed silently. I'd rewritten our story without words. And now, for the first time, she had to live with the echo of a man she thought would never walk away. But she wasn't done trying. And I wasn't done watching her fall apart without ever laying a hand. It was close to midnight when the headlights hit the trees. I saw them before I heard anything. A low hum in the distance, followed by that familiar stutter of her engine when it tried to idle in wet air. I didn't move. I didn't shift in my chair. I just sat there, staring through the blinds as the car crawled up the gravel path toward the lake house. Rain tapped the windows with a rhythm I almost convinced myself was calming. But I knew she was in that car. And I knew she had no plan, no script this time. She was here because silence had become unbearable. That's what people like her can't stand. Not anger, not heartbreak, but being shut out of their own performance. She stepped out slowly. No umbrella. She wasn't dressed for a dramatic confrontation. No heels. No makeup. Just soaked jeans, a hoodie that looked like it had been curled in for too long, and arms crossed like she wasn't sure if she was cold or afraid. Or both. I didn't turn on the lights. I stayed behind the blinds while she walked up to the porch, each step slower than the last. She hesitated at the door, maybe expecting me to open it before she knocked. I didn't. So she knocked. Twice. Softly. like she was testing the sound of her own guilt. Then I heard her voice through the wood. "Wendell, please. I don't want to fight. I want to talk." I still didn't move. There was a pause. Then her voice cracked. "I made a mistake. A stupid, brutal, disgusting mistake. But I'm still standing here. So just, please." There it was. The soft desperation that used to work on me. The vulnerability, the little tremble that always felt so sincere. But now I knew what was behind it. The same woman who could spend a week planning the perfect scene to dismantle me in front of friends, then call it a joke when the damage was done. The same woman who told a man she barely knew that he made her feel like a woman again, while using me as the backdrop for her romantic reboot. Now she wanted me to do what I always did. Soften. Open the door. Rescue her from her own regret. But I didn't. I stayed seated. And I listened. And then she did something that genuinely shook me. She sat down. On the porch. In the rain. She didn't knock again. She didn't speak. She just lowered herself slowly onto the wet wooden planks and leaned against the door, like she wasn't there to be dramatic or manipulative. Like she was too tired to even pretend anymore. Minutes passed. Maybe more. Then I heard her whisper, barely audible. I watched the video. I listened to the audio. And I didn't recognize myself. I've listened 10 times. I don't know how I got there. I thought humiliating you would make me feel strong again. But it didn't. It made me hate myself. And I deserve that. There was a pause so long, I thought she'd left. But then, softer. "I didn't come here to be forgiven. I just needed you to know that I hear the silence. I really hear it." She left something behind. I didn't know it until the next morning, after I was sure she was gone. I opened the front door and found a small sealed envelope tucked under a flat rock beside the welcome mat. No name on it. Inside was a single photograph. The two of us, smiling, younger, at the shelter where we adopted our dog. Behind us was that dumb mural of a cat riding a rocket. She'd written 2 words on the back in pencil. I remember. No signature. No pleading. Just a reminder. And for the first time, I felt something unexpected. Not forgiveness, but something close to mourning for the version of her I used to believe in. The one who traced circles on my palm and laughed with her nose scrunched up. That woman, wherever she had gone, wasn't standing in the rain last night. But maybe she was the one who left the photo. Still, I didn't call, because I'd spent years believing in potential. Now, I only trusted proof. The days after she left the lake house porch were too quiet, even for me. At first, I embraced the silence like armor. I made coffee without checking my phone. I walked along the edge of the lake without wondering if she'd show up again. I told myself I didn't care. But that wasn't true. What I felt wasn't indifference. It was weight. Heavy, invisible, dragging behind me like soaked fabric. Because now that she'd admitted it, openly, in her voice, sitting in the rain like some penitent ghost, I had to face the fact that I was no longer the only one who suffered from her cruelty. She was starting to suffer too. And worse, part of me didn't like that. Not because she didn't deserve it, but because it meant this wasn't as simple as I wanted it to be. Villain, victim, done. Instead, it was 2 broken people dancing around something they both destroyed. I couldn't decide if she was playing one last card or genuinely unraveling. But something about the envelope she left, it didn't feel rehearsed. It felt like the first time in years she'd said something she hadn't already written in her head. And that sincerity was more dangerous than any insult she'd ever thrown at me. A week passed. I didn't hear from her. No calls. No texts. Not even the silent kind of reach we both used to do when we were mad at each other, logging into the same music app at the same time, playing a shared playlist to say, "I'm still thinking of you." Nothing. Just emptiness. Then Henry got a call. It wasn't her. It was a florist. They said someone had ordered flowers to be delivered to his cabin. Except there was no card. Just a wrapped box beside the bouquet, sealed with a strip of red wax. Henry, of course, looked at me like I was about to walk into a trap. "If this is poisoned," he joked, "I'm getting your speakers." But I opened it. Inside was a notebook. Not mine. Hers. The same one I'd seen her scribble into for years, always claiming it was just for work or ideas or planning holidays. But inside were entries. Real ones. Dated. Raw. Some angry. Some confused. Some brutal. Some terrifyingly honest. I read one line at a time, slowly, like each page might turn to ash if I flipped too quickly. Today I looked at him across the table and realized I don't deserve him. So I made him feel small instead. Because that way I could pretend I had control. I don't love Brent. I love how he makes me feel seen. Wendell used to do that. Until I buried him under my own resentment. I practiced the line. The real man line. I hated it. But I needed a reaction. He didn't give me one. That's when I broke, not him. I stopped halfway through the notebook. I couldn't breathe. It wasn't that she was sorry. It was that she'd been aware, deeply aware, of her own destruction the entire time. She just didn't stop it. She let it roll forward like a car without brakes. And when I finally jumped out, she looked back and saw she was the one behind the wheel the whole time. I left the notebook on the kitchen table. Didn't touch it again. That night, I dreamed of her. Not the real her. The version I made up in my mind over the years. The one who never humiliated me. Who smiled at breakfast without pretending to be happy. She sat across from me in the cabin kitchen, sipping coffee, asking if I remembered the name of our first dog. I did. She didn't. In the dream, I didn't feel pain. I felt distance. Like I was looking at someone who had once been important but had turned into a story I told strangers. When I woke up, I realized something brutal. She hadn't left me. I had left her, long before the party, long before the kiss, long before the line that shattered our living room. I had been emotionally walking away for years, numbing myself, avoiding conflict, fearing confrontation so much I let rot grow beneath our floorboards. She noticed, and instead of helping, she burned the house down faster. Maybe we both struck the match. Hers was just louder. But the notebook, the photo, the rain-soaked porch, none of it was an excuse. It was just a mirror, and I didn't like what I saw in it either. It had been 24 days since I last saw her in person. 24 days of unanswered messages, silent choices, and notebooks left in kitchens like loaded weapons. I hadn't planned to ever see her again. I told myself the door was closed, nailed shut, buried. But she didn't knock this time. She didn't come in the night. She sent a message. Short, direct, plain. 1 hour. Neutral ground. I won't ask again. It was a coffee shop on the edge of the city. One we'd never been to together. No memories there. No ghosts in the furniture. I picked a seat by the window facing the parking lot, just in case I needed to leave before she even got out of the car. But when I saw her walking up, slow, small, no makeup, hair tied back like she hadn't had the energy to pretend in days, I didn't move. She slid into the seat across from me like she was afraid of making the chair squeak. She didn't smile. Neither did I. We sat in silence for a full minute before she spoke. Thank you for coming. I didn't respond. She didn't expect me to. I know I've already said I don't expect forgiveness, she continued, eyes not quite meeting mine. But I wanted you to hear it from me. Not in writing. Not behind glass. From me. I studied her face. She looked older. Or maybe just real for the first time in years. The mask was gone. And beneath it, there was something far more unsettling than anger or guilt. There was emptiness. She sighed. I wasn't happy. Not with you. Not with me. Not with anything. And instead of dealing with that like a grown woman, I reached for something shiny and easy. I wanted to feel something again, and he was loud. That's it. Just loud enough to drown out the silence between us. Still, I said nothing. And when I kissed him, when I said what I said in front of everyone, it wasn't because I loved him. It was because I wanted to punish you for making me feel invisible. For not fighting. For not noticing I was disappearing. That one stung. Because it was true. And I hated how much of it I'd already known. The signs had been there. The cooling dinners, the missed glances, the half-hearted goodnights. And I let them slide. I let her drift because I was afraid that holding on too tightly would push her away. But letting go slowly did the same thing. Just quieter. I hurt you publicly, she said. Because you loved me privately. And I didn't think you'd ever leave. You were always the one who stayed. And when you didn't, I realized I'd built my entire power on the idea that you'd never have any. We sat in that coffee shop, surrounded by strangers and hissing steam, two broken halves of a story neither of us had the tools to finish. I should have said something profound. I should have told her how much it wrecked me, how I replayed her line in my head every night. Now that's what a real man feels like, and felt it like a stone tied to my ribs. But I didn't. I just asked her one question. Why did you bring the notebook? She blinked, caught off guard. Because I wanted you to know I wasn't lying when I said I hated what I did. No, I said, quietly, you wanted me to know you finally hated yourself. And that was the turning point. Not a scream. Not a slam. Just that. The moment when she realized I didn't need to forgive her. I didn't even need her to understand what she'd done, because we weren't in the same place anymore. Not emotionally, not mentally, not spiritually. She was drowning in a sea of realizations that came too late. I was already on shore, soaked but breathing. We didn't hug. We didn't hold hands. We just sat, until our drinks went cold, until the table was cleared without a word. As I stood to leave, she said one final thing. If you ever find someone else, please don't go quiet again. Even soft men have voices. I nodded, not in agreement, but in respect. Then I walked out. The rain had started again. Of course it had, but I didn't mind getting wet this time. It's been 3 months since that day in the coffee shop. I haven't seen her since. We didn't exchange any more messages. No dramatic calls. No late-night second guesses. Just two people finally understanding that not all broken things are meant to be fixed together. The divorce papers came in a plain envelope, like utility bills do. Clean. Straightforward. No fight over money. No petty details. Just a quiet line at the end. No contest. I signed them in silence and dropped them off at the courthouse myself. Not because I wanted to hurt her by being the one to finish it, but because I needed to be the one to finally release it, to stop living in a home that only existed in my memory. Afterward, I drove to the dog shelter, the same one from the photo she left. I hadn't been there in years. They didn't recognize me, but the space did, the chip tile floor, the sound of paws on concrete, the smell of fresh shampoo and wet fur. It was the most alive I'd felt in a long time. One of the volunteers let me walk a quiet, nervous mutt named Cosmo. He didn't bark or tug. He just stayed close. Like he knew I wasn't there to fix anyone, just to breathe. I didn't adopt him that day, but I promised him I'd be back. And I meant it. I moved into a small place by the water. Just enough space for books, coffee, and quiet mornings. I kept the curtains open. For years I used to close them. I thought it was for privacy, but maybe it was because I didn't want to see how still the outside world had become. Now, I welcome it. I started writing again. Not angry rants. Not lists of betrayals. Just thoughts. Small, honest ones. I don't share them with anyone. They're not meant for that. They're just mine. And for the first time, that's enough. Sometimes I hear people talk about strength like it has to roar. Like it comes with yelling or fists or some dramatic show of power. But I know better now. Strength is walking away without needing to be seen doing it. It's rebuilding your life without broadcasting the blueprints. It's silence that isn't empty, but full of choice. As for her, I don't know what she's doing. And I've stopped wondering. That part of the story is over. Not erased. Not denied. Just finished. She once said Brent made her feel alive. Maybe he did. Maybe he didn't. But the difference is, I stopped chasing proof. I no longer need to know what she feels. I only need to know how I feel. And today, I feel steady. It's not fireworks. It's not a movie ending. It's a warm mug in cold hands. A clean page in an old notebook. A calm breath that doesn't shake. That's how this ends. Not with revenge. Not with regret. But with me. Finally, okay.